delicious co-creators, Lilou here. I'm in Paris with Sonia Choquette.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hello, hello.
So exciting to have you here, Sonia.
I know, it's been a while. I've been here 9 years already.
Yeah, you love France, you love Paris.
I
Obviously,
love
you travel
Paris.
all around the world.
I travel around the world. I'm part-time in London now.
Yeah, you're
because
a grandmother.
I'm a grandmother, and it's definitely worth moving for.
Yes.
So, but I can't give up Paris. There's something about Paris that's just very anchoring for my spirit.
Wonderful.
Interesting.
Wonderful. I wanted to speak with Sonia Choquette about the becoming multidimensional beings, because that's something that we feel in all of us. I think there's something sparkling, there's something bubbling up. Yes. With these times of kind of difficulties, because we went through a lot. A lot of us have worked hard and diligently for many, many years towards something that we feel pushed to do, and some of us feel like it's something is growing, is bubbling up, and is emerging. And a lot of us, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, want to have access even more to these informations. Yes. And feel even more this cosmic being that we truly are. We are multidimensional beings. I've interviewed you many times, Sonia, and it's always been at crossroads. I know you've always been there at chapters in my life, but more than that, in our big chapters, life chapters for all of us as a humanity, because as a big global, humanity, I would say, because you have some skills and talents and knowledge, and you've been doing this for many years. You're a New York Times bestseller. You wrote Ask Your Guides, that is still a best-selling book, and you wrote many books in the past nearly 30 years with A House. What a career, huh?
Well, I feel like it's an interesting time, because I feel like over the past 30, 40 years, I've been teaching this awareness, these awakening, these skills, but I feel like I was way out in the field. And now the city moved in, and now what used to be very unusual and people weren't even terribly interested has now become probably their primary interest. Yes. The world has changed. Yes. We've evolved. And we are continuing. It's very exciting.
Yes.
But uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. So tell us about what you see globally is happening right now before we get into the topic of becoming multidimensional beings.
Well, I believe that we've reached a point, maybe about 8 years ago, where we were at a tipping point. We could either completely, through unconsciousness and through the perceptions, the limited perceptions of the ego, which allow us to, which are basically me against you, and you're the problem, and I'm in danger, which creates all this struggle, war. Plus, it also separates us from the earth. It's like the earth is a thing we use, and not a living consciousness that supports who we are. So that tipping point was going one way or the other. So there's been a tremendous surge of divine support to tip us into an elevated consciousness, to take us out of that limited perception of ego and start to recognize the truth, which is that we are spiritual beings. We are spirit embodied. We live in a world that has its own spirit, the earth, and that there's spirit energy around us on many, many dimensions. So it flips our perceptions, and we can no longer continue to operate as though the only reality is physical. We are becoming too sensitive to higher realities, so we have to change our whole way of perceiving life. And that is exciting, but it's uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable because we do things that are familiar. And for many people, bringing this higher awareness into a secure place for them, they're looking for something familiar, and they don't have a point of reference. Then we had COVID, which tremendously accelerated our awareness that we need one another. That was the big lesson. We need the earth, and we became aware of the earth because we all got quiet. So that was another awakening. Oh, I'm not just stuck in my head and numb. Now my feeling body's coming online. And then...
And with all of that difficulty, a lot of suffering, a lot of burnouts, people really withdrawing from their life and realizing that this can't be it and there is more to life.
Right. They began to realize, they began to recognize how their lives were an autopilot. And they weren't thinking, feeling, registering, they were just keeping up. And everything was a blur. After COVID, there was a lot of awakening, and for many people it was a shock and quite frightening. They knew that either I have to get creative because I have new circumstances, and when you have to get creative, you look to your spirit. You can't, especially if you have to create to respond to circumstances that are so unfamiliar, you can't rely on the past too much. So that's thrown us forward and has been a catalyst for dormant senses, our sense of clairvoyance, which really it roots when you say, I perceive, or I can see what you mean, but we're not talking about our real eyes, or I imagine. That's the root of your clairvoyance, your ability to envision and recognize, or clairaudience, which is when we hear the meaning behind the words, and we can sense vibrationally if something is congruent or not. It's like, that doesn't sound right. We can't quite, it's not exactly the words, it's the vibration. Those sorts of things. Clairsentience is like, it doesn't feel right. That feels so good, and I don't know why. So this is what's happening as a consequence of all that restriction. It's activated.
So where are those coming from? Where is this information coming from?
Well, we have external senses which register vibration in a frequency, a certain degree of frequency. So I call it like an AM radio. It can pick up a certain bandwidth. Then with our lives being disrupted and the globe being disrupted, these inner senses that we have, which have been dormant and primarily ignored, popping off and on, but collectively, you're crazy. Collectively dismissed as not real. Start to come on. We have a sense in our stomach area, in our solar plexus, even science now is starting to acknowledge this, that picks up things that can pick up vibration that would threaten us. It's our survival instinct. It's our first intuitive instinct to keep ourselves safe, just to live. So we pick up, I call that quite simply your red light sense. Stop, protect, don't go there. Then we have the heart. The heart is conscious. Even, we've had so much evidence of this, even when, in the most dramatic case, you have a heart transplant and someone else, your heart's in a different body, and someone else is all of a sudden aware of the experiences of the person that had the heart.
That happened to Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes, and it's happened in a lot of places where someone has been in crisis and they're caring for someone, all of a sudden they're feeling the same experiences as the person that they're caring for. Even nurses and doctors, not even blood relationships. So the heart is the huge central space of our essence, and it is what I call your green light inner sense of connection and community and creativity and a sense of our personal power, which is love. That's our power. So that's your green light sense, and it has two elements, the heart and what we call the high heart. The regular heart kind of scans your human experience and tries to help you find connection and belonging. The high heart helps you begin to see the shared spirit in all of us. And so people no longer are threatening. You may not like them necessarily because their vibration doesn't resonate, but you're not projecting that the world is dangerous. You begin to see, it's pretty beautiful, and there's many opportunities here. Then we have what I call your yellow light. It hovers between. This sense is our caution sense. That makes us aware, receptive, curious, open, but not rush in. So we need that sense as well. So that's like, I have a feeling this might be okay, or I feel intuitively that we should not commit just yet. So it's not definitively black or white, all or nothing. These are nuances of awareness. And then we come to the upper senses. We have an awareness in the back of our neck. That's why people say, the hair in the back of my neck stood up if I feel something. Our skin picks up vibration. We have our outer eyes, we have our inner eye, we have our what we call the crown, or the perception that there's something more than my ego experience, something more to me. And all these things are waking up because our world is unpredictable. And when things are unpredictable, you have to be aware.
Yes.
We can't go to sleep any longer.
With all the information that we get through internet and the books that are being out on spirituality and all the different, there's so much information out there that we are realizing that it's way bigger, way more weird than we could have ever imagined. I mean, we hear of so many different terms, and things that are happening and are even materializing. So what is to you the nature of reality? I mean, how is that evolving as we're evolving, or is that stable, or is there something? Can we define it?
My answer is it's choose your own adventure. I feel like whoever is the creator, our consciousness is our creator, coupled with our actions, our perceptions, our beliefs, our intentions, and our actions. So my reality, I'm a universe unto myself. So are you. You have a whole different universe unto yourself. And then when we create a shared reality, it's where we agree on certain perceptions, but even those are very subjective. So it is choose your own adventure. And what we're learning is, there's not a reality. It is my reality that I'm creating. And I now have to pay attention. And it's almost like I have to learn how, I'm a magical being, but I don't know how to use my magic very well. So right now we need to learn how we are indeed responsible and capable of creating the world that we want. There's resistance because so much conditioning that life happens.
Yeah.
But, it's almost an interesting period of time. Once upon a time, the collective perception was that the earth was flat. And it's all my senses could see, and anyone who challenged that was considered ridiculous, how dare you, depending on if it was the church, they called you, completely breaking all the religious laws or whatever. But the collective agreement was, this is reality. But there were always people going, I don't know, I'm curious, I sense there's something more. They spoke up and were definitely assaulted, but eventually, at some point in time, those ships went over the edge and came back over the edge, and people started to question that there's reality, and they had stories of that this looks one way, but it's another. And it proliferated, so the world flipped, and all of a sudden, it went from the earth is flat to the collective was the earth is round. Mm-hmm. Not every single person on the planet individually learned that. It just went through the consciousness because enough people shifted. Mm-hmm. We're at that same point. We're like, there's only the third dimension, but we have enough stories, we have enough reports from beyond that it's starting to become integrated into the collective. That we are not just physical beings. Now it's more than 51% of the human race recognizes that. So within 10 years, it will be common knowledge. It'll become our new normal.
Yeah. In 2007, the secret went out, so the law of attraction opened a lot of doors for many people. And you were just speaking about the fact that we're creating our reality, but it seems that actually there are already many realities going on at the same time.
Exactly.
Multiple, millions of them, thousands of them happening, and we're actually manifesting what's already there on some levels. So do we really have to impose our point of view, or is it the future way of creating is receiving what's already so for us?
It's neither of those. I like to express the multidimensional. We think of multidimensional and we use language like the third, fourth, fifth, so we have a picture that you're going up a ladder. But in fact, you're not. In fact, think of it this way instead. It's like an accordion. You're stretching every way, not just linear. So you begin to recognize that I exist concurrently in my physical body. That's one reality. Simultaneously in my mind, that's a whole other reality. Then we go to our spirit, that's a whole other reality. And then we realize that on each of those, there's shared consciousness. So this is where on the most mundane level, we can have a telepathic experience. I'm thinking of something, you're thinking of something, no one says anything, and then we both say it at the same time. We've had telepathic creations, one scientist in one part of the world and another in another part of the world happen upon the same invention simultaneously. Then they argue who was first. But then we get into these experiences where maybe through our dream state or we're just relaxed and daydream, we become aware of other beings that are non-physical. Maybe it could be as simple as my dad who passed away, or an old friend. All of a sudden you really sense their presence, not just I'm thinking about them. You weren't thinking about them. You just sense the presence of non-physical beings. And it just confuses your brain for a while. Because we were conditioned to ignore all these quite natural, spontaneous levels of awareness. So now people are starting to whisper and communicate, but we have now social media, so people get on the social media and say, this happened to me, and then 80,000 other people say, well, thank God it's not just me. So that's part of how the whole collective is starting to recognize that we're now agreeing that we're not having these weird, unique experiences. We're having collective experiences, but we are having unique influence in how we interpret it.
Yes.
My experiences might be a different interpretation than yours.
Yes. So if you would define multidimensional beings, you started already defining it, but what does it encompass? What does it really mean?
It encompasses is that you are operating on multiple levels of vibration. Third dimension is our physical vibration. It's dense, it's what we touch. Fourth dimension is our mental vibration. Our minds, our creative minds, our beliefs, our subconscious is part of the fourth dimension. Then we go to the fifth dimension, which is then we start to tap into our spirit. The spirit of us, the force that gives us life. The force that allows our minds to think. The force that allows our bodies to grow. That's the spirit of us. And so, and we know this naturally. We're just trying to explain it to ourselves. Yes. So that's the challenge. It's not that we aren't having the experiences. Even if I've traveled all over the world for 40 years, and I would say to people in every part of the world, I would ask them spontaneously, where does your spirit live? Who gets that question as a regular? And they universally, without having been conditioned to ask that, never say this. They never say, I don't know. They say, here. That is organic. That is not something that, it's sort of like saying, where are your eyes? Where's your spirit? Here, whether I'm in China or Argentina or across Europe or Canada or Hawaii, it doesn't matter.
In the heart chakra.
Hand goes there. You can ask anybody, how's your spirit? And some part of them will go right there. I've observed this for 40 years. So this is our natural understanding of our spirit. If you say, where's your head? What are you thinking? People will automatically look up. That's the fourth dimension. So it's interesting to see how our bodies already have this access, where our minds are starting to allow it to influence us.
Gary Zukav had a book like The Seat of the Soul. So it could be the seat of the soul, but it seems like the soul is way bigger than this body. Is actually when it reincarnates on this earth, it has a little bit tight in there to fit in.
It's an interesting distinction. The spirit of you is this unlimited divine force. Your soul is that spirit poured into your body, and now we're going to use that spirit, which we now call the soul, to remember my divinity, to learn how to express and how to create with this energy through all the layers of my mind, my subconscious, and everybody else's, and the collective. It's like a big game. So the soul of you is like the end of the ray of the spirit of you. And the soul is what comes out and learns to actually create, to have the experience.
Yes.
It's not, our spirit never, we have an expression, the dark night of the soul. That's when I'm struggling, I forgot, I don't know, I'm not sure, maybe the world's happening, I'm not empowered, I'm lost. And then I refine myself. But we never say, I have a dark night of the spirit, ever.
Good point.
It's like the sun is always shining.
I know someone that has, Aruna Lipschitz, which is a famous French author. She said she had a dark night of the spirit, and that was terrible for her. She's always been considered as a mystic here, but all of a sudden she lost it.
I would question whether it's just a matter of language and perception, rather, because the spirit in us is the divine spark. It's our life force. Then it doesn't
leave.
Doesn't go out. You can disconnect from it, which is a different thing.
Yes.
But as long as your heart is beating,
Yes.
it is there.
Yes.
It is what gives you life.
A lot of people go through this dark night of the soul or through a reset of the heart in order to becoming these multidimensional beings, or we don't need to go through suffering to experience that.
That's also
or to
something
know that consciously.
I've watched. There are some people who come in and are generally super interested in developing the soul. I was one of them. 7, 8 years old, I'm already trying to ask questions. By 10, I had books like this at the library. There are a lot of people like me, you, who come in intentionally wanting to grow, knowing intentionally. But the human brain, in most people, it operates like a camera almost, or a recorder. And it records and it says, okay, we have to do things in the same consistent way. And when you have suffering, it's like your predictable world gets messed up. And so until that world gets disturbed, for most people, we don't particularly feel motivated to grow. So that's why suffering is part of growth, because otherwise we're quite content to be very predictable. We're quite content to just go about life. And now this is a generalization. This is the collective. But the minute something unpredictable comes up, where do we go but inside, and we start looking for answers? And that's why growth is associated with suffering. But it doesn't have to be. Sometimes we can, and what I actually think is happening now, and you can think about this for yourself or the people you know, good things are also causing us now to grow. Unexpected, positive things, where all of a sudden you meet someone and you walk away and think, that was such an unlikely but moving encounter. Or that, wow, I like that person. I wonder why. Even so, it's not just negative motivations now. That's part of what we're seeing.
Is the soul experiencing different lives at the same time? Meaning, could we be a crystal in a life, an angel in another, a human being in one?
Well, I will tell you.
Some people speak about this octopus going on.
Well, what I have seen, which is even more radical, and perceive and have worked with, is that we are like 1,000-faceted crystals. So each life is a facet. Each experience of consciousness is a facet simultaneously happening around this central crystal, which is your spirit. So we could have 1,000 realities going on at one time, and they bleed through. The way we experience this is, you walk into a kitchen, you see beautiful food, and for reasons you cannot explain, you know how to cook it up. You know how to make beautiful things. You just start throwing spontaneously things into a recipe. Or you see a canvas and paint. One person's kind of dabbling, but you all of a sudden you got a beautiful work of art, because it's coming from another aspect of you that we call lifetime, simultaneous experience, comes through. So in this crystal, everything bleeds through. So can you imagine if you perceived yourself as having 1,000 realities that could help one another, how differently you would live? Mm-hmm. Like maybe this present consciousness doesn't have to be afraid. Some part of me knows how to deal with this, whatever arises. Mm-hmm. Like instead of being threatened when you're met with the unfamiliar, you tap into your multidimensional self and say, well, at the moment this is unfamiliar, but some part of me absolutely knows how to deal with this. And you will find that's one of the ways to experience immediately your own multidimensionality instead of believe us or just listen like you're a spectator.
Yeah, because we live in uncertain times, so we have to deal with this uncertainty, and this is revealing, as you said, our power, and knowing that we have already experienced it, or we are already experiencing it on another level. It actually gives me the question, brings the question up of time, what is really time, because how is that possible that, so a lot of teachers speak about past, present, future coexisting.
Well,
how do you put this?
Think about time like a film, and each film has a frame. Mm-hmm. As you watch each frame, as you look one after the other individually, it appears as though you're moving forward, say like in a movie. But if in fact, all the frames exist at the same time, it's your attention that is creating the perception of past and future. So time is a perception that we've collectively created. When you go to indigenous cultures like the Aboriginals, they live in what they call dream time. They don't operate or work with the collective agreement of just third dimensional perceptions. They are moving in and out of time as no time. So we're going to start experimenting with that. Humans are cautious because of survival, because there is a bit of a timer on our physical reality, although that will probably change as well.
Yeah.
Well, the less fearful we are, the less wear and tear we put on our physical apparatus, so it's starting to stretch out. Even our longevity has gone from in the 70s and the 60s and 70s, it was around 70 years old, and now humans are projected to live to 85, more as the common age of longevity. So even that's changing.
Yes. So we're meant to live longer, better, and because you're saying the fear, because actually it goes always back to this question of, are we choosing fear or love? How are we evolving, and which part of this earth, or which context are we going to live? So therefore, which choices are we going to make? Because there seems to be two kinds, there seems to be, as Dolores Cannon had mentioned, two planets, love
and fear. What I see it is like energy flows in a faucet. Love is when you turn the faucet wide open and it just flows and allows everything to be supported. Fear is when you start to turn that faucet off, and pretty soon, for some, it's just coming a little bit, and some it's drip, 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 and for some, they shut it off, and they're just stuck in their heads, and they agree, they choose to be powerless. Now that really, our love or fear is a choice of how much power and responsibility do we want. Love allows us to be empowered, but with it comes responsibility. Mm-hmm. Fear is everything's happening to me, I don't want to be conscious. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of people are going to have that luxury anymore, because we're also recognizing that we affect one another. So everybody who chooses to stay in fear and negativity is pulling down the collective vibration. That's what we're seeing on the planet right now.
Some souls are checking out pretty quickly right now.
Enormous waves of souls are saying, okay, I've had enough of this game and this fun experience. But what else I'm observing are those people who have taken advantage of people's fear and have put themselves in positions of power, preying on and amplifying people's fear. They are truly trying to hold on So all of a sudden you think, what's happened to this world? It's become so awful. I see it a little differently. I see it as the last waves of this old consciousness of hierarchy, power and control and dominance. The very last waves are trying to hold on, but their days are numbered. And so, like any pattern, it'll contract before it breaks. So there's this huge contraction. We're observing events on the planet that are so awful, and not that there weren't events before that were awful, but because of our communication and our social media, we now see and experience it more intimately. Used to be something awful was happening over there.
Yeah.
But now it's in our faces, and consequently, more humans are saying, no, don't want this. So the collective consciousness is going to rebel. It's in the process of rebelling. No matter what media says, the majority of humanity is choosing love. They're starting to see the consequences of making no choice or ignoring it.
Yeah.
And that it affects them too, that nobody is immune to what we're doing together. So we're going to see so many rapid shifts of consciousness, and that's also multidimensional. That I am now able to genuinely feel the pain and suffering of someone that I don't know, that's not in my immediate environment, and I truly can't stand it. We have to stop. Even though I don't know them, I want to protect where pain and suffering is happening, where misuse of power is happening, where even the earth, all of a sudden I have to stop being disrespectful to the earth.
So is that a matter of protecting ourselves? I mean, if we're going to feel so much, if we're going to become so sensitive, how do we deal with the suffering around us? To people we love also? And
we recognize that we have an ability to influence that by our own consciousness, our own behaviors and actions. When we start being loving, when we start being caring, not caretaking, but caring, we start being responsible that I'm influencing this general perception. And if I bring a positive or loving influence, then it could definitely assist in helping the overall vibration improve. That's what I see happening. More and more and more people are just finding it intolerable to be in fear and anger and bitterness. They just can't do it anymore.
yes, hence some checking out.
And the ones that say, to the point that I don't even want to grow on this, in this particular realm anymore, I'm leaving. And we will see a lot more in the very immediate future. If you understand that you are multidimensional, that your spirit lives forever, this is one expression, but it's not your only identity, then even you perceive death as a liberation. And if you're emotionally connected, of course, you will have the human experience of suffering and loss, but you will not have the terror that comes with only the ego understanding of you. You'll know life goes on. You'll even experience connection with those who are not physically embodied. It just starts, we're just reframing the whole perception.
How does that feel like, Sonia? Because you've been practicing that for so long. How does that feel like to be in contact with the spirit world, to listen
Peaceful. I'll tell you, people have said, what is the biggest motivation for this growth? And it's that you feel safe, you feel peaceful, you don't feel threatened, you feel supported, and you have the experience of support. You open the door for life to be easier. You feel more in love with yourself and with life and humans because you don't feel alone. You don't have an existential crisis that I'm all by myself and how am I going to live? You feel connected to forces much greater than your own willpower. And it really brings peace. And it helps you become a peacemaker. So there's a lot of immediate, profound sense of relief.
So how do you create your life then when the information comes one step at a time? We have to learn to be more in the unknown, and it's really like there's this trust that builds also, and moving forward without knowing where we're going but trusting. I mean, can you give the whole moving forward, how do you live the day to day and project by project? Because you're creating a lot. I mean, you wrote how many books?
I've written 32 books.
32 books, and you teach all around the world.
I do stretch time, I will say. I don't, if you were to say, when did you do that? I had 2 babies, renovated houses, moved countries.
Divorced,
rebuilt my life. And you know, if you live as a multidimensional being, you have more time. You actually have an incredible amount of time to do it all.
Yeah.
You do, and you still have time to sleep. And you don't need as much sleep on top of it. But here's how it works. It used to be that we would learn a little bit, assimilate, maybe have a little intuition, assimilate. But now what is happening is people are getting these big downloads. All of a sudden, this huge, like a flood of consciousness that is just shocking them. And they're, all of a sudden, in the morning, they were on a 3rd dimension, and by noon, all of a sudden, an angel appeared, or you had this huge download of I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to start a business, or I'm going to meet my soulmate today, or I just met my soulmate, and we have this huge explosion of awareness. And so it's accelerating this growth. So I'd say for some, it's going to be a little bit. You'll assimilate. And here's how I suggest you put yourself on that path of expansion. The first thing is to be in your body. And the reason I say that as first is because we have a challenge. Our phones. It's a challenge. It's an addiction to pull us out of our heads and distract us from our own experience. So we have to put the phone down, and we have to be in our bodies. And the way you be in your body is through a series of very simple breaths. The first is you breathe in through the nose, and then you pull your belly to your spine, and you exhale like you're blowing out candles. With the intention of emptying all that stuff you just got off your phone, okay? All that input from the external world. Do that 2 times. Belly to the spine. Choosing to empty. That's the state of mind you want to be in. The 3rd breath, you breathe up from your feet into your heart. And it's using your imagination. Like my feet don't breathe, but we're breathing energy this time. When you do that, you'll notice your ribs open. They do. When you're breathing up, you open, and then you open the jaw till you hear a click. It opens all of this constricted energy in your body, and you slide into your heart. And then you see yourself filled with light. When you do that, you have the same state of mind as if you've been meditating, because your mind is quiet. But you're present, you're aware, and all of a sudden what's happening is you are listening. Not to words, but to everything.
Yeah.
And that is the first experience of, there's more than what's in my head. You start to listen, and you begin to sense this reality that's much bigger than what your contracted thinking was. And just practice listening with your whole being. 5 minutes a day. Listen to the sounds of the room. Listen to the tone. Listen to the feeling. Listen to the color. Listen to the weight. Just present these options. And then you'll be able to experience yourself at a higher level. It's a higher you that's listening. And the more you listen, the more you are quiet and listening, the more quickly you expand. The next thing you're going to hear is your own inner guidance. Not in words, but in energy. Energy that's pushing you. We interpret that energy with words.
Yes.
you feel an energy that's pushing you forward, and your words say, I need to go for that. Mm-hmm. Or you feel an energy that's saying, turning you away. You feel an energy that's lifting you up. Oh, that's a good person to know. You feel the energy draining in your body. Oh, this relationship is, the dynamic that I have with this person is taking my energy away. So you start to notice. The first step to multidimensionality is to empty and notice. Mm-hmm. Listen. Those three things are enough.
Yes, we don't need to ask.
No, but here's the fourth step. You will perceive if the vibrations around you are good for you, uplifting to you, exciting, creative, or not. And you have a choice. Mm-hmm. So think about simple things. Don't get too heady and too complicated. Say you're with a group of people. You're having a good time. You're having, say, a dinner. At about 3 hours into the dinner, you've had enough. Your energy is saturated, you're full, but the party's going on, and now more champagne and more drinking, and you have a choice. Do I listen? Do I pay attention? Do I follow my own energy? That is my soul, my spirit, taking care of me. I am full. I need to retreat now. Or do I betray myself? Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to be unpopular. I don't want to break up the vibe. I have fear of missing out. I just don't want to be uncomfortable. So I'm going to keep in the group, and I'm going to ignore my experience. Well, then, that choice will then bring you back down to a lower dimension. So it's situation by situation, awareness and choice. Now, this is a level of attention that people have to develop. Mm. But because vibration is getting so intense, it's getting easier to pay attention.
Yes.
We used to be able to ignore it.
Yeah.
But our whole planet is evolving. It's conscious too. And so even the ground you're walking on doesn't feel quite so predictable. Mm-hmm. This is this uncomfortable feeling everybody's talking about. I was getting my hair done the other day, and my hairdresser, who I've known for years and has never said anything to me, said, I have to ask you, are you uncomfortable? Something's wrong. What's going on? Just couldn't keep it to herself. It was breaking all protocol, didn't know me, but just... And then the next thing, the whole salon's talking about it. You know, at the most mundane place. What's going on? And it's this awakening of sensitivity to energy and what choices are you making?
Yeah. So it feels like we have to get comfortable in being uncomfortable, you know.
We have to interpret this as an invitation to grow instead of a threat to our existence.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do, is recognize this discomfort is inviting me to grow, to be more aware, to be more aligned with what resonates with my heart and body, to be more conscious of my voice and what I'm saying, to be more conscious of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So this is, I would call the age of self-awareness.
So is there, because I remember, you know, interviewing Wayne Dyer that you knew, and he would spend his time in Lahaina in Maui, and just, you know, he would say after the interview with me, he said, I'm just going to walk on this beach and do whatever God wants me to do, you know, and I'm not going to have a plan anymore.
Right.
So is it actually where we're evolving, all of us, not having a plan and trusting and letting things happen, or really manifesting?
Well, when the secret came out, it was so compelling because people felt so powerless, and that gave them tools of power. All of a sudden, I can have what I want, and this is teaching me the beginning steps to how. So it's the first level of self-awareness, how becoming aware of how I'm using my energy. As you evolve and you go through the stages and you begin to manifest materially, eventually it becomes less important. You now want to manifest things that bring you different rewards, like good relationships, Our first level is, I just want a relationship. And then we manifest, Bozo here who gives us so much grief. And it's like, no, I got to improve this. I want a good relationship. So we've just elevated. Then eventually you get to the point where I just want to feel authentic, safe, in love. And when you learn to manifest and that you can, survival doesn't drive you anymore. That's why the first entry is we got to get the physical things because we're still in survival. Mm-hmm. Then we want comfort. Then we evolve that we want connection. Then we evolve that we want creativity. Then we evolve that we want to contribute. It keeps going to a more expanded state. And then we evolve that we just want to love the whole experience. But we have to go through each stage to get there. So whatever stage you're in is good. It's all good. If you're listening to this and say, I just want to manifest a new car, okay. Enjoy that experience. And when you get that and drive around a few times, you're going to decide, maybe I want someone in my car. So it works that way. The universe is organized, and so is our growth.
But it seems like the more we trust life, the more we let go of that egoistic point of view, and the more we actually manifest something even bigger and even more fulfilling, that is even more in tune with all the parts of ourselves,
right.
That we might not even be aware of.
Well, I think the key is the more we learn that the true nature of who we are is this very empowered, divine, loving, gorgeous being, and we can trust that instead of trust our ego, which is by nature a very suspicious and defended animal. The more we trust our spirit, and that we trust our spirit is supported by all these, like a divine support system and by a loving creator, then we relax. Mm-hmm. We're not afraid anymore. And then we find that when we relax into that sense of who we are, that creativity and manifestation actually happen pretty easily. They do.
Yeah.
We have to start with, I want to manifest a parking spot instead of $1 million, but that's just because you can imagine a parking spot. You can't create what you can't imagine. So start little. But know it's your spirit that is working with the universe, creating that. Your intellect is supporting, but it's not the creator.
Yeah. Ram Dass, that was also on Maui, said, I am that I am. And a lot of powerful spiritual teachers say that. So this is the place where I am.
Yeah, the name of the spirit is I am.
Uh-huh.
So I am the divine in this body right now, but I am divine.
Yes.
And I am, as a divine being, I am secure. I am comfortable. I am safe. I am available. I'm not defended. I'm not judging. I see that, and this is the big equalizer. When you get connected to your spirit, it's like changing the lens on a camera. All of a sudden, you're not looking at the physicality of others and judging the surface. You're seeing and feeling their spirit. Mm-hmm. And so humanity all of a sudden becomes a lot more interesting and attractive and supportive. Mm-hmm. So your experience of humanity, this is a funny story because we have to look at our perceptions. I have a client years ago. He was a nephrologist, I believe, kidney doctor. He came for an intuitive session with me, and he said, my biggest problem is that I am so in love with spirituality, and I am so devoted to learning, and I want to develop my inner guidance, but I am married to someone who would divorce me if she knew any of this. She's so closed, she's so negative, she's such a bummer. I don't know what to do. So divine humor had it orchestrated because he was in my home that the doorbell rang for my next client. She was a little bit early. It was his wife. Oh. So that's just an example of his perception with her was very third dimension. He wasn't seeing who she was. He was so convinced she's this negative person stopping his reality, and there she was. And here's what was even funnier. Who is that? He recognized her voice on the intercom. Oh my God, do you have a back door? And he took the back door instead of meeting her and saying, oh my God, we're here together, but we could share this. He bolted. That's an example of how you go up and down in consciousness in the moment. So I say to my students, it's not like you arrive at the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension. It's a wave. You're going up and down, but because of your experience, you start to stabilize. I do prefer to be in an open-hearted, loving, available state. I prefer to have the access to my guides. I prefer to have a quiet mind where I'm not judging everybody because I want to use that attention to create. It's my preference, it's my choice. But then you're on the bus and someone's annoying you and take your seat, you're right down. Who do you think you are? You took my seat, how rude of you. But it doesn't feel good. So you don't stay there. You have a choice. And what's changing is that we're not unconscious as easily as we used to be. Everybody's becoming more aware of how they're using, what frequency, of what dimension they're choosing to live on.
Yes. When you speak about different realms, we think of angels and archangels and guides. And one of your very best-selling book, is Ask Your Guide. So you're used to teach that, and you teach that online too through different courses. What are they like? Is there different levels, dimension? What is that whole world, and how can they help us?
Such a good question. The subtle realms are just as populated as the planet. So we have so many vibrational energies, and the first contact we have, and this is why it's been so emphasized in paintings and in stories, is with the angelic realm, because we are given by our Creator when we birth into this human experience, which is a wild ride. We are given guardians and protectors in the angelic realm who help us stay on the path that we have elected to follow. We come into Earth with soul intentions. We want to grow in certain areas. If someone's thinking, well, what area? Well, whatever area causes you the most pain. Maybe you want to grow in relationships. Maybe you want to grow in manifestation. Maybe you want to grow in creating your own health. Wherever the problem is, you chose that as your classroom. But you have angels to get you to class, keep you from losing your way, and reassuring you. Their number one job is reassurance and love and support. You have then so many levels of support. You have helper guides who come to say your project is to renovate a house. Maybe you bought a house, but it's just really in disrepair, and so you will attract helpers who have been maybe builders when they were physically embodied, or they've had this experience, so they'll come. I had that experience, in fact. I bought an old house in Chicago where I lived with my husband, and it had very ugly windows looking out to within a meter the next house. It's a terrible view. And I asked my guides, I said, look, we have to do this ourselves, and we can't take the wall down, but what can we do? And my guide never thought of this in a million years. He said, put stained glass. Take the panes out and get stained glass paints, and you'll get beautiful light. And that was my guide. Gave me, that's how guides work, gave me the inspiration. Even helped me find where I could find the stained glass. So what was the biggest liability of that, drawback to the house turned out to be the brightest point. And when we sold the house, I was like, oh my God, look at that stained glass. It's like so uplifting. Guides come in, say you're sick, say your body doesn't feel good, and you're in the store and you're shopping, and all of a sudden you hear, don't buy that. you're reaching for the meat, or you're reaching for the dairy, or you're reaching for the pancakes, and then all of a sudden your body goes, don't buy that. And you have a choice, but you have the awareness, and it comes in. That's how your guides work. We have teacher guides. Whoever might be involved, paying attention to our conversation, your teacher guide brought you here. Our teacher guides move us to where we can learn in terms of consciousness. We have light beings, and they're the ones that are really helping our planet collectively, because we got way close to implosion. So there's a lot of light beings, and that's why we're even seeing in the third dimension experience, we're seeing UFOs. All of a sudden, it's a common conversation. We're waiting any day for the aliens to walk in. I certainly am. Half the time I'm walking down the street and I see people and I think, that's an alien. There's just something about that person. It didn't get quite 100% the human look. And it's one of my sports. Alien spotting. Well, try it.
There it is. You
can see it. They're like something not quite right. It's like you're almost there. And that happens, and a lot of my students have said, I think I saw an alien. I go, you probably did. They're kind of getting used to us before they out themselves. But so all of a sudden, nothing is as we thought it was. But you do know you're in the spirit. Like for us now, the joy guides are here.
Yeah.
And they bring the humor, which clears your mind completely. All of a sudden, you're open to everything. So we have as many guides as we have need to grow. And then we have joy guides who just come in to make your life nice.
I just can't get out the image of the aliens around us.
Yeah, look, I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. And it's sort of like there's a game in Paris. There are these little things on the buildings and you take a picture. Yeah. And then you get another one. I do that game with alien spotting. To me, like, there's one. There's one. Oh.
Is there a lot in Paris?
There's a lot everywhere. If you start looking, and most people don't see them because they're in their phones.
What is
their
role?
Their phones, they're alien right here. They're missing it altogether.
What is their role then?
They're getting familiar with us because they want to come and help us elevate our consciousness. They're bringing a higher vibration. They're observing us because we seem so strange to them. And they're integrating because they are helping us elevate.
So are there darker forces in the universe?
There are definitely darker forces. Most of them are what I call disjointed thought forms. Our own dark thoughts take on a life of their own.
Yes.
And you walk in a space and people were arguing, and there's like the spirit of that, the essence of that argument and that anger and that judgment and that manipulation can hang around. But it can only affect you if you host that in yourself.
Yes.
If you host it in yourself, vibrationally, it's a match. As Esther Hicks would say, it's a match. But if it's not your nature, then it will actually move away. You could break it up just by being in your own good nature, your own good energy. So a lot of people ask me, they're like, oh, I'm afraid of bad spirits.
Yes.
And it makes no logical sense to be afraid of bad spirits unless you are actively expressing and pursuing choices that would invite a match to that in yourself.
Is there such a thing as, in French we say faille, so it's like...
Fairy?
No, it's like a little zone that is open to darkness to come in.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But
like,
there is a
like
zone...
Like crackling
but
zones.
You absolutely have to work hard to be in that. You have to be nasty and victim and maybe addicted and just checked out, and even then you have to get pretty dark on a consistent level to be invaded by any dark energies.
A good friend of mine say the best thing is to stay in a pure heart
and laugh. You want to be an instant bad vibe blowout and dissipators laugh. When you laugh, that's God in your veins. That is God rippling through you. Your true laughter is a dose of the divine. It will send any lower vibration to the light.
What do we do when we sense lower vibrations?
You have a choice. I think the best choice, if it's an option, is your left and right foot. Turn around and leave. Just say, I gotta go. Something, I don't feel good, which is the truth. This doesn't feel, I gotta go. I need some air. That's what I do. So that would be your first choice. Just, you can even have more fun by going, gotta go. I go, oh, please do. Get out of here. I don't know why. And you can say a prayer. You can say a loving intention. Ho'oponopono, the I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, go to the light, thank you. Because if you're feeling a bad vibration, maybe something in you on some level in some lifetime had some kind of disagreement. So just go to I'm sorry, forgive me, I love you, goodbye. Go to so
Go to
the light.
To the light.
We don't have to. This is important too. This is a good point. You don't have to understand something to be empowered. And secondly, how many problems in your life have you understood perfectly but nothing changed? I think we overrate understanding. It's not understanding that's liberating us. That's why I say this, because some people want more and more and more and more information. No, just choose more and more love, more and more joy, more and more humor. And you don't need all that information because you're hardwired as a multidimensional being. You don't need to know how the electricity works or the plumbing works in your house.
Some people like to know, but yeah.
They like
Most
to
of
know,
us,
but
yeah.
most of us would just rather get on with being in the light and having our glass of water and create something else besides. So if you need to know, okay, but caution. It's one way that your ego keeps you stuck.
Since this video will be also broadcasted in France, what do you think is the biggest French thing that is holding us back from being multidimensional beings or really living that?
My experience is that there is a mindset I run into here more than anyone else, which is that the response to things is pas possible. I hear that all the time.
Not possible.
Not possible. I hear that so much. And I've had many conversations, and I will say it is. And there's a willingness to argue about that. And so that to me is a limited mindset. And I would say, c'est possible, toujours. And that would be a new opening a window of option. Because what that says is what I know is all there is to know. And what any of us know is not all there is to know. There's always something more we can be enlightened by. So that would be my recommendation, is to just be aware of that. And just change it, just flip it. Je me demande comment ça sera possible.
How is it possible?
I wonder. Because those words, I wonder, open you to the higher dimensions. So that's something that is very simple. We can't pile on a bunch of things to change. That's not how humans are. Pas possible. But we can say one thing can change, and it will set off a whole domino effect of other changes. And it becomes very interesting.
Yes.
So you can even say, I wonder how it's possible. It will happen. I don't know how.
So since you're American, what's holding back Americans?
I think that we tend to want to be like stone skippers. You know, when you skip a stone on the lake, you want to see how far the stone can go, and you don't necessarily go too deep. You don't take the time. You don't pause and be aware and be curious about what's outside my own little area of interest. I find that Americans could definitely benefit with traveling and learning and appreciating other than their own point of view.
And how about British, since you're also spending
I
some
would
time?
say I'm in
since
Britain
we're
all the
doing a little
time. I would
voyage?
say that, and again, I risk because I'm not judging, but at my observation is that their number one connection to spirit is alcohol. And so it's like a good rough draft, but you're not going to get where you really want to go.
Yeah.
So those spirits tend to keep you down, but I see the motivation is to get to their emotion and their feeling body. So I've observed in London, so polite, so kind. There's a social level of acceptance that you don't go out unless you're drinking.
Yes.
So they drink a lot. So I've observed. And then they're out of it. So I would say every culture has its bias. I mean, I'm half Romanian. And I can see there can be a very negative mindset if like we're the victims of everything, and so every culture has a collective influence that you want to become aware of, so you don't let it limits you.
Yes. Well, it's interesting when you mention addictions, because I do think they're a way of us to just not be in touch with our spirit and our higher. Because once there is addiction, our vibration lowers, no? And we get to...
Addiction to me is, first of all, becoming less conscious.
It numbs us.
It numbs us, and it makes us, it gives away our power, it gives away our volition, our sovereignty, our choice. So it's really self-destructive in so many ways. It's being, and to me it's a lack of imagination. It's lack of imagination. It's like I can't do anything, so I'm just going to knock myself out or numb myself out. And that addiction isn't necessarily just substance. Or it could be your phone, it could be shopping, it could be binge TV watching, anything that
criticizing,
gossiping. But what it does is it takes you out of your body, and everything's happening out there to me, and it's not nice. So I believe people are becoming very aware of their addictions.
Yeah.
It's harder to get away with them because I also think collectively people are becoming less tolerant of those who are addicted. And so there's a lot more conversation about no bueno, buen camino, I'm out of here.
Yes.
So to me, it's like we took a machine and unscrewed everything and went like this, and all the parts are reorganizing simultaneously.
Same then, disease. I'm going to interview also a shaman that speaks about the spirit of diseases, and there seems to be spirit in everything.
Absolutely everything.
Tell us more about that, because you do speak of spirit all the time and you teach that.
I believe that the essence of every single thing is spirit. And it has different tone, expression, personality, energy, and intention. So when you have, like, say you get depression, there's a spirit of depression. So you start to doubt yourself. Maybe your biology's off a little, maybe your diet, maybe PTSD, trauma, but then the collective depression, that's that opening you were talking about, can swoop in. Because we're always looking for a match. We're always looking for a vibrational match.
Yes.
You ever notice the minute you decide I'm going to learn to ski, you meet every skier that's newfound skier in the world. You've never met skiers before. Same with illnesses.
Yeah.
All of a sudden my back hurts. Everybody who has a backache is showing up, and then our backs hurt even more. In fact, Wayne Dyer had a back injury, and my sister, who is a tremendous healer, worked on him and took the spirit of the world on his back and pulled it out. Now, healers and shamans can come and help get those spirits disconnected, those frequencies. If there's another word, we can call it a frequency with an intention.
Yes.
That's another way to deal with it, because spirit spooks people sometimes, and they think, oh, I'm scared, and we don't want to go there. So that's just a frequency.
It's like an energy, yeah.
An energy that has an intention.
Yes, and we create a relationship with it. And
right.
Then it's...
And then if it's shared with other people, then that amplifies. So I think the biggest requirement for us now, and it's really annoying a lot of people, is we have to pay attention to how we're thinking, what we're focusing on, what we're telling ourselves, what we're projecting and sharing with others. It's the age of self-awareness. And for a lot of people, it's a shock.
Yes.
And it's annoying. It's easier to be unconscious, but the world isn't allowing that anymore.
So it's about, if we can summarize, of being responsible.
Aware, notice.
Aware.
I make it this simple. First, stop, look around. If you want to change your vibration, I have a simple formula so you can experience it right away. Look around and notice the most beautiful thing you see right in front of you. Because the ego is always scanning for what's ugly, what's threatening, what's going to hurt me, what's going to make me judge. But the spirit looks for beauty. The spirit looks for what's wonderful, creative, beautiful. So that instantly changes the channel. Step 2, you do 2 exhales in the slide. You empty, then you slide into the heart with a sigh. And then you smile. You pull the curtains of the heart open, front and back. And then you listen with your whole being for 2 minutes. And then you go to your heart and you start naming what you're grateful for. Out loud, because the voice activates the heart, the throat, the back of the head, the solar plexus. So you use your own voice. And you start naming what you're grateful for. And after that, and this is what I would love to experience, that then pulls with your voice, your heart, your open, present state, a magnet. You become a good vibes magnet. You become a manifestation magnet. And then you say thank you. And then during the day, as you go through the day, you will get prompts. Do this, call that person, show up here. And things will start coming in.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Time to go home. Not another shot of tequila. Let's go. Depending on what country you're in. You'll get the prompt, but you have to remember, ultimately you're the one with the choice. You will get the prompt. You will get the urge. You will get the aha, and it will be subtle but noticeable. And then you need to recognize your choice.
Last question regarding because we didn't speak about that, but the indigo child, star seeds, and all those different names that they exist and that are out there. There was Dolores Cannon that wrote this book, The 3 Waves of Volunteers.
Yeah, these are souls that look at us and go, man, they are really not getting it down there on planet Earth. That 3-dimension consciousness is really sucked in. So these brave souls, the first collective massive wave were the indigos, and they were the ones that started to rebel from the system, patriarchal control. They rebelled in education because our education systems are modeled after military training. Shut up and do what you're told and die if you have to. I mean, that's pretty much truly the education system, which is also going to go. So the indigos started fighting that. They're the ones that said, I'm not doing this, and I'm not going to be afraid of you if you're the teacher, and I'm going to do my own thing. And they broke up all the rules. Love those souls. And then the star seeds are the ones that start pointing out the subtle realms and are not to be silenced. And they're the ones that have started to make the generations before them open up their minds. Because they are not surrendering to mind control and ego control. They're just not. And now this new wave of which your daughter, my granddaughter, these are joyful beings coming in. They are not to be disturbed by anything historical. They're not necessarily corrective. They're here to just put in a brand new vibration. It's like a reset button back to our divinity. So I love these waves of souls, even the souls that we call autistic. Beautiful light beings who are coming in to break up the presumptions of what it is to be normal. and allow us to start seeing and recognizing things sensorially, because most of the out picturing of these neural change divergent ones are they're very sensitive. So we all need that. So thank you for coming in, because you are making those checked out, know-it-all consciousness of just do what I say and be quiet, blown out of the water.
Yes.
So I love how we are loved on this planet, and by so many souls showing up to keep helping us have a better experience.
And what's the best way, education-wise, because we have to finish this conversation with future generations, and how to become a parent in these days and accompany best their
I actually
kids.
wrote a book about that way ahead of its time, but it's still out, The Intuitive Spark. And it's about the best education is what you create, the atmosphere in the home. When you listen to your children, when you speak to their spirit, you let them know you're aware, invite imagination back into the world instead of information. And in the book I wrote, it's a family affair. It's not like I got to do this for my kid. No, we have to create an incubator of love and democracy in the home. Just you're little, I will take care of things you have not yet learned about to keep you safe, but I'm not going to presume I'm more important than you, or that you're more important than me. It's very democratic. We are souls that are working together. So if you create, and
it's good that you're mentioning the other way too, because kids
absolutely,
now
because
these
we don't
days
want
think
overwatered plants either.
they're
We don't want rotten apples here. Put too much water on the plant. No, we have to say it goes both ways.
Yes, it goes both ways.
My spirit, your spirit, the shared spirit, and the spirit of the house. So I do talk a lot about that. I created a course with my daughter, Sabrina, who's grown and now has a daughter, because I was raised in a family like that. And I do believe a lot of my access to the multidimensional world was because that's the way I grew up. When I grew up, we set the table. We always had a chair for the angel. We always blessed and thanked whatever relative was passing through. There was always a presence that we acknowledged and were grateful for. It was my normal. Now
Guessing who was calling on the phone as well.
But way before, we had 7 children in my family, and we lived very modestly, and this was way back in the day. I'm like truly the original gangster here, but the phone was on the wall, and before we'd answer it, my mom would play games with us. Who's on the phone? And we'd all have our moment, and she would say, if someone said something it wasn't, she'd say, well, it's okay. They're going to call next. It's not immediate. You're tuning into them thinking about you calling. So nobody had a right, wrong. It was all just feel free to explore.
Sonia, what are you wishing for human beings now with this book, with this actually teaching, with this conversation of becoming or realizing that we are all multidimensional beings?
What I wish for is that people would be curious enough to give some of this consciousness a try on, so that they could experience for themselves that life can be really good, and that they can be very powerful, connected, creative, contributing, have a life of meaning, and even have time to go have some fun. And that if enough of us have that experience, what a wonderful world it would be. So my motivation is to help people realize you're safe, you're okay, you're empowered, and now is your time to take ownership of that. That is really my wish with my whole heart.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for this delicious moment with you.
It was fun. It was wonderful.
À Paris.
À Paris, toujours. À Paris. That's something about Paris, too, that is one of the biggest ways to elevate to the higher dimensions is beauty.
Yes.
And everything about Paris, well, most things about Paris is quite beautiful.
With lots of aliens around.
A lot of aliens.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much, Delicious Co-Creators, for watching this video. Please share it. You can check Sonia's website with so many amazing, amazing tutorials and online seminars and online.
Absolutely. Even
yes.
YouTube.
And YouTubes and all of that. So much gifted teacher here next to me. Thank you for this privilege to interview you again.
It was a gift that you gave me. Thank you.
Thank you. Much love. Please don't hesitate to share this video if you loved it. See you soon.